What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with SPY, the QQQ, Nvda, Amazon, Meta, and Apple, and many other stocks out there, and break down what the charts are telling us. I'm going to talk about the news affecting the markets, what catalysts are coming out, and also what's going on with Tesla stock, as we have some breaking news that involves Elon Musk and many other top-selling models out there. Before breaking down about all this information and what the news and data and technicals are telling us about Tesla, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, whether it's $1 or $100 is up to you. You are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth of $3,000. And the best part is any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends very, very soon, in just about one day. So check it out before they run out. Tomorrow will be your last chance. That's out of the way. Let's get on with the video. All right, Tesla's up 4.14% for the day, holding up all right so far. But I'm going to be very, very cautious with this stock because we're clearly seeing a bearish divergence developing right now. Now, with the bearish divergence developing, there's no promises or no guarantee it has to play out because we'd have to watch for confirmation at the same time. But the problem for Tesla is I'm starting to see many signals suggesting that SPY and the QQQ are going to start selling off very soon. And I'm going to break down why on earth that is, why the odds are favoring that, and how this could affect Tesla now moving forward. But first, let's talk about what happened today. So I released a video. I told you guys that for the markets, I'm going to be very, very cautious. And I ended up making the call that the market is likely going to start selling off soon. Now, for that video, it was more for like the longer term, but I was talking about what I saw in real time. And then right after I released the video, the market pumped just a little bit. It wasn't a crazy pump, but it was worth noting. And this helped Tesla make its way all the way back to like 202 right after I released the video, maybe about like an hour afterwards. But then the real question is, why did that happen? And that's because we had this piece of news that came out from McHenry and McCarthy. They're both turning very optimistic about the debt ceiling. McHenry was very pessimistic in the past, talking about how there could be a default and all these different things. Now he came out and he's saying that over half the House will support the debt ceiling bill. And that's one of the first times I heard him say something this positive about the debt ceiling situation. So because of that, that played a big role in why the market started responding very positively. And we saw McCarthy say more bullish things about the debt ceiling bill. He basically repeated the same thing as before, as I mentioned on this channel, about how the House is going to support it, especially the Republicans in the House. And that was part of why the market had a positive reaction. Then on top of that, this was just a very important fake out move that came. So the market was selling off, right, all the way down to 418. We had a lot of sell signals. Then what they did is they pumped the market to trigger lots of these stops, getting to 421. But then SPY failed to break 421. Once again, not a good sign. We came back down to the 419s, chopped around a bit, and then at the last second, they tried to push the market to 420 to get us that close just barely there. Why? Because it hurt the people holding the 0 day to expiration options by pumping the market like this. And now the market's going to make a big reaction, very big reactive move to what we're about to see. So the real question is, why am I saying that there are these sell signals developing on the markets? What is going on right now? One problem I'm seeing is that the debt ceiling is not as impactful as it has been before. We got a pump in the morning, but the problem is the market's been pricing in a lot of this. Could this be a sell the news kind of event? The answer is yes, it's a possibility. But we still need more confirmation, of course. Let me just also add that the market is going to get one more positive reaction probably once Congress votes on the bill to raise the debt ceiling and once they officially do it. So there could be another pump coming later on. But until then, I'm anticipating that the market's going to sell off a little bit. And I'm going to break down more reasons as to why that is in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the market right now. For Wednesday, please remember that we have Chewy earnings and Nordstrom earnings. And then for Thursday, we have Macy's and finally Dell earnings, which are going to be very impactful. Dell especially. And then on top of that, for tomorrow, Please note that there's going to be a lot of volatility during the first 15 minutes of the day and every 15 minutes until the first hour. So at about 9:45 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, we have the PMI report that's coming out. That's going to lead to lots of volatility because this does give us a lot of indicators of how severe the recession we are in is going to be. And this is important for the Fed's data. Then at about 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, we have the JOLTS job openings and the JOLTS job quits coming out. This is important for the Fed as well and the whole market because the market wants there to be pain for the job sector. So be very careful with that. At 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, we have the Fed Services Revenue Index, more Fed data coming out, then loads of Fed speakers. But the biggest thing coming out for tomorrow will be the PMI report alongside the JOLTS job openings and quits. So be ready. Expect lots of volatility 15, 30, and then 1 hour after the market opens. 15 and 30 minutes, sorry about that. And then 1 hour after the market opens. And then on top of that, the news is coming out with all of this AI drama that's coming out too. Uh, we're starting to see some positive things that are reflecting for many different companies like Nvda. And there has been some positive news for Apple involving AI, but it wasn't really enough to help Apple pump. The option chain for SPY is very nuanced. Not too much is coming out for tomorrow with max pan 415, 1.58 put to call ratio. There's a crazy amount of puts expiring though for Friday. So there's always the possibility of something big to come on that day. I will talk more about this later on, but for now, it's not as crazy for tomorrow and Thursday in terms of how many options are expiring. The volume was about 128 million on Tesla, higher than average, which is a pretty good sign. And overall, Tesla has been outperforming the market with a relatively high price price ratio that's continuing to climb as Tesla's gaining strength. Wedbush has reiterated that Tesla is going to have a very, very bullish time in the future. Lots and lots of strong performances based off their analyst ratings. And Tesla has strong resistance around this 204 to 205 zone. Now, support to watch for is going to be around this 198 for the time being. But you have to watch it carefully because if Tesla loses it, something big is going to happen. Finally, on Wednesdays, Tesla tends to be green only 48% of the time. May tends to be a weak month or kind of like an okay month for Tesla, but June tends to be a lot stronger. May is very weak compared to June, is what I was trying to say. 77% of the time, Tesla's green in the month of June. And as far as seasonal, uh, hourly seasonality goes, Tesla tends to be strong during the second hour now, and also during the fourth and fifth hours of the day. Tesla has a tendency of seeing high short interest. Lots of these shorts did start covering at the end of the day, especially on Friday when Tesla continued to squeeze. I'm expecting this to start coming down as we see that reflecting the data. Now, for Tesla, the solar roof is revolutionary for them, according to many builders. That's great news for Tesla, but this is not as huge as some people were anticipating for Tesla moving forward. However, despite that, this will be critical for Tesla's solar power deployment. And Elon Musk is mentioning that we should not worry about the current sales. The longer term future of the company, he is still very bullish. And Elon Musk said that Tesla could produce 1,000 new solar roofs by the end of 2019. He said that they're going to be doing that every single week by the end of 2019 is when he said that. But unfortunately, they didn't really reach that goal. They're still far behind that. So this is leading many people to criticize Elon Musk for that. Despite that, Tesla is still gaining more revenue from the energy sector. Energy storage is still growing big time for them, and they're still doing well overall. And I still suggest that there's going to be more growth coming for that sector. For the time being, it may not be as strong, but moving forward, I'm still very optimistic for it. Tesla had a very, very bullish reaction to Elon Musk meeting with the Chinese foreign minister. Elon Musk went to Beijing, and he, in turn, would be meeting with many Chinese officials, and he has opened the possibility of Tesla expanding its business over there in China, potentially expanding their gigafactories. Now, in essence, I have a very mixed view of this, saying how tensions are rising between the US and China. And it's very important that Tesla diversifies where they hold their gigafactories. However, from a business standpoint, as long as tensions don't escalate too much, this would work in Tesla's advantage simultaneously because the cheaper labor and the specialization of China will work in Tesla's benefit. For now, we have to be very careful. Uh, at least for the time being, because news that affects China will affect Tesla too. We have to be very careful as Tesla gains more exposure to China moving forward. But for now, we had a very positive reaction to this, and I do believe that this may continue moving forward in the eyes of many investors. On top of this, the Model Y was the best selling car worldwide for Q1 of this year. I have a chart right over here. The Corolla came in at second with 256,000 vehicles sold, whereas the Model Y came out with 267,000, absolutely killing it. So, huge congratulations to Elon Musk and many different Tesla employees, the entire team. They're absolutely killing it, and I'm very optimistic for what's about to come. Now, when it comes to inventory levels, the Model Y inventory levels are still not too high, especially with Memorial Day. It didn't really have that big of an effect on Tesla, but overall, it's not looking too bad for Tesla. The Model 3 is making me a little bit more concerned because the highest inventory backlog we saw was around 835. It's currently at around, I think this is close to like 800 plus, maybe like 810 or so. Once again, there are way too many Model 3s. Tesla has to do a better job at selling more of them, such as price cuts or things like that could help them. But we'll see how it goes for the latest deliveries. For now, let's talk about the charts. What am I seeing for now? Let me just note that SPY is not looking that great, in my opinion, for the bulls. There's a clear head and shoulders like formation that's developing. On top of that, we got a bounce off 418, but we failed to break 421, and we closed just barely at 420. Not looking the best. There's a bearish cross on the PPO and a bearish divergence that developed right here on the 1 hour time frame. It's a little bit hard to see for a lot of people, but you could quite clearly see it right here. I think on the 30-minute time frame, you could see it easily compared to like this. So on the 30-minute time frame, you could see the RSI was at 80 at different points, even higher than that. And then looking at the RSI here, it was very similar. It reached an even higher level at 82. So that was normal in the very beginning, right? When we started off the pre-market. But then here's the thing. It started declining as time went on. So it started off very normal and then it started declining. So the RSI started slowing down. Tesla was just, not Tesla, SPY was losing more and more strength, but the price continued to push up and hold these high levels. Then the RSI started selling off. And overall, it's been remaining in this downtrend like formation. You can see it clearly here. On the hourly time frame, it's the same thing. There's this clear downtrend that started from right here. The price continued to pump, and yet we started to see a sell-off afterwards. So this sell-off is triggered by the bearish divergence, the regular bearish divergence, and now we have a potential head and shoulders like formation developing. On top of this, a big issue I'm seeing would be the imbalances right here on SPY. I mean, there's one clear one around 415, and this is likely going to act as a magnet for the algorithms, right? The algorithms want to balance the net volume, and the MACD is wide open right now, so there's no clear sign of a bounce just yet. So far, we made a lower high compared to like this low right here. And then we made, sorry, this is a lower low and this is a lower high. Same thing, right? Lower low, lower high were basically made on SPY. And it's not really giving us strength we need to push to 426. Now, this could change my mind, but in order for us to get to 426, we have to break the high of the day. And so far, it barely touched 421 near the end of the day and just sold off after that. It's looking like this thing is going to start testing the 50 EMA very soon, by tomorrow maybe, or within 2 days, to retest 418. We could get a bounce in the morning before we start to see more selling pressure. I'm going to be watching 418. If 418 fails, I'm going to be watching us come all the way down to the 415s, and that's where we have this imbalance. We're likely going to be attracted right there, and the odds are favoring downside, in my opinion, for SPY. Now, for the QQQ, before I talk about Tesla, this closed below 350, below major support, very close to it. We have a bearish cross on the PPO right over here. Excuse me, sorry guys. Bearish cross on the PPO. And finally, let me just add that I saw a bearish divergence on one of these time frames. I think the 30-minute time frame was showing it. So right here, right, we're continuing to see this bearish divergence. The RSI was at 89, almost 90. Then the RSI declined to about 88 to 84 as we hit this high right here. This marked the top as we started to see the QQQ sell off. The QQQ is trying to hold the 50 EMA on the 30-minute time frame. With this bearish divergence, playing out, we're going to be watching how 348 reacts. If it breaks 348, it's going to come all the way down to the 345s. If that fails us, it's going to come all the way down to 340, which is where we have this imbalance. Do the odds favor that? The answer is yes, but we need confirmation first. That's going to be a break below the 50 EMA. Okay, this is also forming a head and shoulders like formation again. I'd be very careful with this, right? Don't forget about the saying, buy the rumors, sell the news. Market pumped off the news about the debt ceiling, then the market started selling off today and we barely closed green. QQQ did close below 350, and now there's some signs that it may start to cool off and continue to cool off as time goes on. Make sure you watch these support zones very carefully. Now, if we're bullish, let me just repeat myself. If we're bullish on SPY, it needs to break 423. If it does that, it could fly to 426. So far, the odds greatly do not favor that, and the odds are favoring downside anyways. For the QQQ, for us to turn bullish, it needs to break the high of the day, and it could make its way closer to 360. For now, I'm not seeing that. The odds greatly do not favor that. And there's a bearish divergence even on the MECD, the MACD, and also on the PPO. This is telling me that we may continue to see more downside as we get this right shoulder forming, and this thing will likely approach the mid 340s very soon. The HYG is very balanced right now, just trading flat for the time being. But on the 30-minute time frame, right, there's not really a whole lot that it's doing. There's a potential sign of resistance right here between 75 and 74.35, and it has rejected off this area before, so we're at heavy resistance. If it rejects, this will lead to more selling pressure for the markets. As far as Tesla goes, it's holding up okay so far. All right, I'm not completely bearish on Tesla just yet, but I want to just note that in order for us to turn bullish, we have to invalidate this bearish divergence on Tesla. And that means Tesla has to break 205 for the bulls to have a chance. It has to do that. If it fails to break 205, it's not going to look good for Tesla. It has to break 205. We need some kind of catalyst to cause that for it to do so. If it fails to do so, right, this bearish divergence would still be valid. And if you look at the bearish divergence, it's still valid right now. We have to break this and get, a better looking RSI, more strength. It's starting to lack lots of strength. Look at the RSI. The MACD is telling us the same thing on the 30-minute time frame. There's a bearish divergence once again on the RSI, and the 1-hour time frame, the same thing is happening to Tesla. We have a bearish cross on the PPO, and it's continuing to slow down. It has a tendency of bouncing off the 50. So if we do retest the 50, it could bring it down to 193. But in order for it to get that low, it has to break below 198. So that's the support I'm going to be watching. Okay, so if you're bearish on Tesla, watch 200. If 200 fails, there's 198 to 197.5 around that area. If that fails us, it's going to most likely come all the way down to 193 to fill this gap and also test the 50 EMA. If you're bullish on Tesla, you need to see it retest the high of the day and break 205. If it breaks 205, it could go all the way up to 210. Now, where am I leaning towards? I'm leaning towards Tesla chopping around a bit, making an attempt to hold because there are still some buyers around with good volume, but the odds are favoring Tesla eventually retesting 98 to 200, or at least 98 flat, and then eventually breaking down and getting to the mid 190s, in my opinion. It may not happen as soon as tomorrow. It could take a couple of days for it to play out, but the odds greatly favor that because of SPY and the QQQ. For NEO, it's going to make a big move depending on deliveries. Be on the lookout for deliveries. It could get a big pump if they get a good number. If not, it could crash more. There's this imbalance right here, so it could always revisit and get closer to $8, but we'll have to wait and see. What else is not the best for Tesla would be the NASDAQ. We're about to get this bearish cross on the PPO. It is overbought, still in overbought territory. You look at the RSI, and we have this unfilled gap technically, followed by this imbalance at 12,750 or 12,734, like around that zone, right? So that's telling me that the NASDAQ, which is also potentially forming like a slanted head and shoulders, could make its way all the way down to where the 50 is, very close to 12,750. If that's the case, tech is likely going to be dominating that, causing more downside. The dollar is relatively strong right now, still at 104, only down 0.15%. As it's been pumping, that tends to be bearish for the markets. The VIX has a potential inverse head and shoulder right here, right? We have this imbalance, left shoulder, head, right shoulder forming. If it does, form the right shoulder and bounce off 17.3 or around that zone, we could come all the way up to where this 19 level is. Why? Because the market may see an increase in volatility due to more downside causing the VIX to move that way. For Coinbase, for now, it's holding up nicely after the bullish news about the SEC settlement. But the problem is it's just not gaining a much momentum up here. It pumped hard, came down a little bit, tried to bounce, and overall it's just starting to trade a little bit flat. There's this giant gap all the way down around the 57 area, so watch that very carefully. If it fails to hold 58, it's going to come all the way down to 57. Then we have 56 support followed by 55. However, for us to turn bullish, it has to break above this 62.5 resistance. If it breaks that, it could get closer to 64. I'm kind of in the middle on Coinbase for now. I could try to hold these levels for a little bit longer thanks to the SEC filing, but the odds do favor it slowing down as time goes on over the next couple of trading days. Could take a while for this since it has some relative strength, but we'll just have to be patient. What else is not good for the markets is Apple. Apple has a head and shoulders like formation developing, and it failed to break above 178 to get to 180. It just got stopped as time went on, and it's looking to me like this thing likes to test the 50 many, many times. The 50 EMA is around 175. We also have this unfilled gap at 175, which is where previous support used to be, which previous resistance, excuse me, which becomes support, right? And that tells me that Apple could reach 175 very soon. Now, if Apple's bullish, it has to break and hold 178. If it does that, we could push to 180, and the market would like that. Right now, the odds don't favor that looking at this MACD right now. And it looks more like Apple's going to make its way down to about the 175s and fill this gap. It's starting to look that way, and the odds are starting to favor that. All right, so watch 178. If it breaks that, it could get to 180, and then watch the 177.5 to 177 flat zone. If it breaks below that, it's going to come all the way down to 175, and that could cause the market to drop. I'm leaning more in the direction of the bears, Apple pushing down. For Nvidia, 400 is going to be very important. If it breaks below 400, it's going to make its way all the way down to 395. And if that fails us, there's a gap down to about 390. For it to remain bullish, it has to hold 400. If it does do so, we could see a retest of 402. If it breaks above that, then we have this potential imbalance area around this 411 zone. However, in my opinion, Nvidia is looking a little bit more bearish. There's a potential head and shoulders as well. We're starting to see this distribution phase, and it's starting to curl as time goes on. With the bearish cross and a wide open MECD, the odds favor Nvidia making its way down to fill the gap, in my opinion. I think it's going to retest 395 very soon, if not 390. I think the odds greatly favor that. For Google, if we're bearish on Google, it has to break below the 123 support. If it breaks below that, it has this imbalance down to about 121.46. It's going to likely make its way down here. The odds favor that. That's also where we happen to be around the 200 EMA. If we're bullish on Google, it has to break and hold. Needs to break 126. If it breaks 126, it's going to make its way up closer to 128. For now, I'm thinking Google might try to bounce a little bit, then make its way down, and the odds greatly favor it getting closer to 120 flat. Same thing with Amazon, very similar to Google. If we're bullish, it has to break 123. If it does do so, it's going to make its way to 125. If it fails to break 123, and it rejects around this area, we could get a retest of the 50 EMA. That would be the more bearish case. If 120 fails us, we're going to be watching 119.44. It needs to hold the 50. If it fails to hold the 50, this is going to be a very important support. It's going to come all the way down to 116. That's going to be very important, okay? So watch 119 to 120 on Amazon. If it fails at 119, the 50 EMA is going to come down to 116. If it manages to hold these levels and breaks 123, it's going to make its way up to 125. I'm leaning a little bit more bearish though, seeing how the market's looking and seeing this bearish divergence on Amazon alongside the bearish cross on the PPO. The odds favor more downside. For Meta, same thing. The odds are favoring downside for it. It's going to likely try to bounce though since it's sold off this hard. Try to bounce and retest maybe like 265 or so before it continues to come down. Then we could see it test 259 before it comes down a little bit lower to this imbalance around 252. So I'm going to be watching both support and resistance. For it to turn bullish, it has to break 269. If it does that, it could retest 275. But I'm leaning more in favor of the bears on this one, right? Looking at the current technicals, looking at this MECD. All right, guys, so that's what I have for this video. For Tesla, we need confirmation, okay? If Tesla breaks 205, hypothetically, it's going to turn bullish. If it fails to do so, you have to watch 200 and 198. If you fail at 198 on Tesla, if it fails to get us any nice bounce or anything significant around that zone, it's going to likely retest 195 then 193 for the gap down here. This gap all the way down to the very close to 193. The odds are favoring Tesla cooling off soon over the next couple of trading days, but I'm always going to remain open-minded given how the market could move. However, looking at the technicals, Tesla has a bearish divergence that's fighting. It's still valid for now, and we have this bearish cross on the PPO, which is gaining some strength on the hourly. Okay, so I'm open-minded. I'm always going to be open-minded, but I'm leaning more bearish based off SPY in the QQQ and based off the fact that Tesla did not give us a very strong break above 200. It touched 204, it came down. It's only at 201, could not get to like 206, 207, 210. It's barely above 200 right now, and I just want to be very patient and cautious with this chart. But once again, I'm always open-minded nonetheless. Always be open-minded. I'm just leaning more in favor of the bears, and I do believe Tesla will likely make its way back down to the 190s very soon. If it fails once again at 198, if that happens again and we don't get a nice bounce or any bullish catalyst to help prop it up again, it's going to likely come all the way down to 195, then 193.58 and fill this gap down here. Okay, so thank you all for listening. That's what I have for this one. I appreciate every single one of you. So please remain calm, cool, and collected. And don't forget about two more things. There's a Webull link down below. Deposit any amount of money and you're guaranteed up to 12 of free stocks. And don't forget about my merch. I'm selling merch. You could see it around the comment section if you want to buy a cap, a hoodie, a tank top, or something like that that says "To the Moon" or "Money is Calling" or something else like "Buy the Dip." You have the option available as well to help support the channel. But it really is your choice, and I want the best for everyone. Thank you for listening. Tesla in the market to the moon, as the long term is still incredibly bright. Same thing for SPY in the QQQ, despite some short term fluctuations. And peace out.